Oh, okay. I'm the English teacher, and so what are here are the definitions of deduction, syllogism, and anaphoria. So deduction is a type of reason from a general truth, from a specific truth, or to a specific truth. And then syllogism is a general claim or a major premise. And anaphoria is the beginning of grammatical units. And so here are some examples of deduction, like deductive reasoning. All men are mortal. Socrates is man, and therefore Socrates is mortal. Oops. Okay, here. Hang on a second. Okay. So here are some examples of syllogism, and it is like most of Jefferson's people agreed that they should overthrow a tyrannical ruler, and the Declaration argued that King George III was such a ruler. And then here are some examples of anaphoria, and Jefferson uses anaphoria to list grievances against King George III. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to the Constitution, and he has obstructed the administration of justice. Here are other definitions. Introduction is the action of introducing something. Preamble is a preparatory statement. The charges against George III is like incidents that he was accused of. And criticism is the expression of a disapproval of someone. Evaluate word choice is Jefferson's autobiography provides an eyewitness account of the deliberations affecting the declaration as an object lesson, and this document does not come forth as a spontaneous miraculous accompanied by fireworks.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I have Thomas Jefferson. I'm a historian. Thomas Jefferson is a handsome fellow. Thomas Jefferson was born on April 13, 1743 in Shadwell, Virginia. He was born to the father of Pete Jefferson, who died when Thomas was 14. His mother was Jane Rudolph. Thomas Jefferson grew up to become an American founding father. He was a principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and later, after that, he became the third president of the United States. Thomas Jefferson later died after all this on July 4th, 1826 in Monticello, Virginia. I need to go back. The history of the time period. One of the things that were going on during Jefferson's life was the Revolutionary War. During this time, the United States became known, during this time, the 13 colonies became known as the United States. Before Jefferson became president, there was a George Washington, D, and John Adams before. The life of Jefferson. He served as a member of the Virginia House of Burgesses, served in the Continental Congress, served as the governor of Virginia, served as the first U.S. Secretary of State, served as U.S. Vice President, served as the U.S. President. The biggest thing that he did of all these was probably served as the third president of the United States. He ran for president against John Adams and to become the second president, but he lost and became the vice president. The biggest thing that he did to shape our nation was wrote the Declaration of Independence. Which the reasons that he wrote it was because the British colonies of North America sought independence in July of 1776. The opening statement, Declaration of Independence, says, all men are created equal and there are certain unalienable rights that governments should never violate. Thanks.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which nature's law, nature's God entitled them. A decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. That whenever one of these governments becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying down foundations on such principles, organizing the power as to them see the most effective to affect their happiness and safety. Prudence indeed will dictate that a government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more likely to suffer when evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms they are accustomed to. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under an absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to abolish such government, providing new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. The history of the present Kingdom of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses for opposing with manly firmness his invasion of the rights of the people.
To prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to let others pass, to encourage their migrations hitherto, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made our judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of power and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of new officers to harass our people and eat of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures.
He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a legislation foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their pretended acts of legislation for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders that they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws from a neighboring province, establishing there an arbitrary government, enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once a fit example and instrument for introducing the same forms of absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for taking away our legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our fellow citizens. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the acts of death, desolation, and tyranny that he's already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy unparalleled in even the most barbaric ages, and totally unworthy to be called the head of a civilized nation. He's constrained our fellow citizens who have been taken captive at the high seas to bear arms against their own country, become the executioner of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, and has endeavored to bring on our men on the frontiers, those savage Indians, whose only known rule of warfare is an undistinguishable destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms, our repeated petitions being answered only by repeated injuries. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which defines tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting an attention by our British brethren. We have from time to time warned them of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarranted legislation over us. We have reminded them of our circumstances, of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured to them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow the usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in friends peace. We, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectifying of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be completely dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we solemnly pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.